It is a beautiful Wednesday, my dudes, and on this Wednesday we must once again delve into the bottomless pit of oblivion that is Matt Lowne's Planet Coaster Let's Play series. And in this episode of the bottomless pit of oblivion that is Matt Lowne's Planet Coaster series, we will be revisiting Neptune Park to give it this that I am currently building here, a beach, and also a suspension bridge, which will be happening sort of in the latter part of this video. So if you only care about the bridge and don't care about beaches, but I know I'm a big supporter of the Beaches Lives Matter Twitter hashtag. Didn't really think that one through, did I? If you just want to see the bridge, skip. I don't know, it's like halfway through the video. I don't know, but I was pretty proud of how this beach turned out. I had this kind of big awkward spot in front of the big unnamed wooden coaster. And I couldn't really think of a good thing to fill it with. I tried various flat rides, maybe a little car ride or a go-kart track or a wooded area or a maze or a crazy golf or a, you know, the list, it goes on, right? But in the end I thought, you know what, let's have a beach. And, you know, the rest is history. It sounded like I had something else to say and I was like, and then, you know, that was it. That's the end of that thought. Here we are, adding the beach here. So it's not actually a beach in the sense that it has sand, because this particular this particular climate in Planet Coaster doesn't permit sand, but it does let you have rock. And, you know, it kind of looks like sand, right? So here we are placing a little animatronic pirate. I'm going to have one of those sort of lifeguard stations, like you get on kind of Venice Beach. Like in LA, you get those kind of classic wooden huts where the lifeguards sit. Obviously, this is not exclusive to Venice Beach. I don't know if it's like an exclusively American thing, but I've never seen this style of thing in the UK. But I do quite like the way it looks. You know, those little wooden huts. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll kind of get it as I go along, because, you know, between you and me, I think I did a pretty good job in getting the shape of it right. I was quite happy with how this came out. Unfortunately, there are no wall pieces or anything like that are small enough to allow you to build a structure like that, so it's going to be built entirely plank by plank. So, you know, we've got to pay attention to the detail, you know, and as I said earlier, we have that animatronic man in there just to give us a representation of scale, so we know kind of we're building it to the right size and not just building it either too big or too small. So that's why that animatronic is there. He's going to get deleted though, unfortunately. F. Yes, he's going to get deleted eventually. Just seeing that my gain is a bit high on the microphone. Let me just... Oh yeah, I think that's... I'm sorry if I was distorting earlier. I mean, too lazy to go back and check, but it looked like, just looking at the screen on the waveform in Sony Vegas, it looked like I was peaking a little bit. That was a problem I had in my Planet Coaster video. In my Kerbal Space Program video I did it this weekend, I left the gain on too high, and I forgot to change that prior to recording this commentary, but hopefully it was fine. Most people say they didn't actually notice any peaking, so we're okay. Peaking, for those that don't know, is kind of like when it goes all distort, when you're talking too loudly basically and the microphone's way too sensitive, so it ends up just distorting. That's what peaking is. So you have to turn the gain down or something, or turn the input level down in Windows. Just mic talk, love it, gotta love it. So yeah, obviously built the little hut. I hope now you're gonna get to see what I meant when I said the classic lifeguard style house, and then we can just add some stilts for it to sit on. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. Well, not for this episode, obviously. 3 minutes 28, not a great episode. It's got to be over 10 minutes, guys. I've got to get that extra ad space, you know. It's all about, you know, that whiskey ain't going to buy itself, you know what I'm saying? So now we're going to build some benches for the beach. Unfortunately, in Planet Coaster, for reasons that are not clear to me, you can't place picnic benches anywhere other than on paths. So I had to kind of build my own picnic bench from scratch, because I didn't want to have to build a path on the beach, because that would look weird. There are kinds of paths in Planet Coaster that don't have a surface, so you can have like natural paths, but they're always lined with these kind of white dots, I guess to make it easier for the player to see where they placed paths. But I wish there was an option, because there's an option to place ground paths with no curb. I wish it would be possible to place like natural paths without the dotted white lines. Maybe there is a way in Advanced Tweakables or whatever the Planet Coaster analog of Advanced Tweakables is. I don't know what it is, and I don't think you can, but that would be quite nice, so guests can kind of walk, like you put a play area, you have to put like these big goofy paths everywhere to make it possible for people to walk around it. I don't know. I mean, there are ways of getting around it, like you could place like roof tiles down, or just other scenery pieces down, just to the point where it looks like part of the floor, but that's a workaround that shouldn't even need to exist. You know, Frontier, sort it out, mate, sort it out. Speaking of Frontier needing to sort it out, a couple of people actually asked me about Jurassic World Evolution, which is the new Frontier game. Frontier, for those who don't know, is the developer of Planet Coaster and also of Elite Dangerous. So there you go. And now they've also made a game that's very similar to Planet Coaster in the sense that it's building a theme park, but it's basically building a Jurassic Park instead. But from what I understand, it's very expensive for what it is, and what it is not very good right now. It's one of those games that's going to get better with time, I can almost guarantee it, because Frontier are easily one of my favourite, if not my favourite, development company, although, Christian Whitehead's team, Nine Sonic Mania, is definitely up there. Who else would rank highly? I mean, EA, those guys are very, very good for the market. I'm a huge fan of everything EA does. What else? Who else is good? Valve's good, obviously, but they don't do a lot. Guess Nintendo, Retro Studios, and From Software. Squad, I guess, but they only make Kerbal Space Program. And I'm not really that happy with how it's being. There are so many glitches. Every time a new update comes out, it just brings new glitches that didn't exist before. Like the docking port glitch I encountered on Saturday, and how, now landing legs seem to break, and how wheels get progressively worse with each update. Like, okay, guys, we get it. You want to put DLC in it. Can we please just have stop breaking the game in the process? We'll get to it. I feel like it was a lot more excusable before, but now they have the weight of Take-Two Interactive funding them. Come on, there's no excuse. Let's step it up. Let's get Gas Planet 2. That's what we all want. That's what the people want. Gas Planet 2. Whatever. I mean, I'm pretty much locked into the stock game. I know this is a very niche problem to have. It's only really YouTubers like me who are too arrogant to change to anything other than stock. But it would be nice to have a DLC, even if it's DLC, some sort of vanilla, not vanilla, like stock, as in developed by Squad expansion that adds kind of new planets and stuff. That would be a pretty cool, but that's just the Kerbal Space Program talk. That doesn't need to happen on a Planet Coaster video. So now that's the bulk of the beach done. We can add a little hut, because no beach would be, or I guess another little hut, because no beach would be complete without an ice cream shop. That's what I was trying to say. I usually start off in my head. I don't script these in case it wasn't obvious. I'll just say, I'll look at the screen and be like, okay, here I am building a ice cream shop. So then I think, okay, how can I describe this? Here we are building an ice cream shop. But then I think in my head again, that just sounds dumb. All the while I'm continuously talking as this process is going on. I'm like, let's think of something synonymous with that. Okay, here we are regarding the building phase, secondly, the ice cream shop, and it's just complete gibberish. So it's a bit of a knack to talk, a knack that I probably don't have, or at least haven't got nailed down quite yet. But I'll be like, the ice cream shop. I mean, I watch like Scott Manley's commentaries on Kerbal Space Program, and he's just like so articulate. He'll just be able to go on and on about thrust vectors and center of thrust and all of that. And meanwhile, I'm just here using the same words over and over again. I'm like, so. Maybe it's because he like pauses and scripts his videos and like puts time and thought into what he's saying, whereas I just kind of, it's more like a stream of consciousness into my twisted mind. Well, not twisted mind in the sense that I'm like emo, but just my nonsensical train of thought, basically. What am I even talking about? I don't even know. But here we are building the ice cream shop. I tried to have so there's a few different types of wooden wall. One of them is a 1/3 of a meter high wall with like a wooden topping, which I thought would look quite nice alongside the arched bits, which are from the same set, but for some reason the actual top bit was a completely different texture, so I had to make my own texture. I don't know why the texture wouldn't just be the same, so you can make buildings with a continuous rim, which I assume that the whole point of them having a white thing at the top was for. Great. That's why I should check my videos. But whatever. And then again, couldn't get that roof to work properly without sort of glitching through. So again, I had to make my own custom roof as well. And we're building our own custom signs as well. So far, I haven't actually built a custom sign in this series, or any Planet Coaster series I've made. But I thought, now's the time. So I kind of made this sort of little piece, like a little model ice cream out of the arc shapes. Just thought it would look quite nice, to be honest. I haven't really based this shop on anything really. I painted it blue and white because there's a place I used to go to, a beach I used to go to when I was younger. When I was a wee lad, when I went on holiday with my parents, we went to Cornwall and we went to a beach called Mainporth, and there's like a little blue hut on that beach that sells ice cream. It's not as good as this hut, right? This hut's much nicer. It's cleaner. It's more modern. It's got a toilet there. And that's why it's blue. I was like, yeah, that's basically the only thing that's similar to it. It's blue and it sells ice cream. And there's the little ice cream sign I said we're going to add earlier. Is it nearly time for the bridge yet? I feel like I've exhausted all things I can say about ice cream shops at this point. But, I think it was I quite liked the way it came out, to be honest. So we have that secondary kind of board or sort of path that leads down to the beach itself, purely cosmetic that, because for the guests, like for the guest AI, that just marks a dead end, so no one will really go down there. I've added those screens as well, because I intended to add, make my own custom menu on Photoshop and import it into the game onto those signs, but I don't think I actually did it in this episode. I'll do it in some other episode, because I'm clever like that when I'm recording, and I'll just lurch from project to project rather than committing to one, finishing it, and then moving on to the other, so I can have some sort of coherency when it comes to making these videos. But I don't do that, clearly, so that's a shame. But there's the beach, finished pretty much. So there's a nice little panning around shot, so you've got that wooden one in the background as well. And we can do some nice little photographs of it, I guess, as well. There's one from the path, so you've got that shot of the first corner of the wooden ride there. Then you've got the overall view of the beach with the ice cream hut. And then there's just one more shot there of the little hut. The service I had that little bench with pirates on it as well, just to add a little bit of scenery. And now, without further ado, it is time for an advert. If you have ad block on, then please consider disabling it for YouTube so you can support creators, or get YouTube Red like me. It's amazing. I love it. It finally came out in the UK and I can't go back now. It's great. But yeah, we're doing some terraforming now, as you can probably see, because I wanted to build like an extravagant bridge in this series to complement the extravagant structure that is the big central tower. We can have another sort of might of engineering with a bridge. In the end, actually, I'm not sure if I kind of like the way it came out. It's almost a little bit too, it looks a bit too good for a theme park bridge. Like, it would cost way too much and is way too overkill for this kind of expanse. So maybe, I don't know if I'll knock it down, but I might change it or just scale it right down a little bit. I don't know. Let me guys. You guys let me know what you think. If you like it, this series is made for you, partially. I also like playing this game anyway. So if you have any critiques or ways of improving it, then do let me know. One thing I will improve in the future is I will change the colour. I liked the colour of it. I wouldn't say anything about it, but I liked the colour of it at the time when I was building it. But then on retrospect, I decided I wasn't a huge fan of the colour, so I toned it way down. So we've got the valley pretty much carved out. Now, I wanted the bridge to not only serve as a footbridge, but also a means for the track to traverse across that gap. So I'm just going to bring it up, doing as gradual a gradient as we can. Obviously, it's clipping through the ground right now, so I will carve out a valley later on for that rail to sit through. Basically, I wanted to get the gradient of the track's ascent to be as shallow as possible, because obviously in real life steam trains, they don't really go up hills too well. So, nice and shallow climb. I wanted to raise it very slightly above the height of the path as well. Don't know why, actually. Just felt like that would be a cool artistic thing to do. So now I realised I was going to be... My plan was to build a big suspension bridge. I thought I'd try and widen out this gap as much as possible to make it as justified as possible to have a big mega structure such as a suspension bridge. And I'd say that's pretty much wide enough, to be honest. We can get to constructing the bridge itself. So I went with the initial plan of planting down a metal floor, first of all. So I'm using the alloy pieces, and I decided to go for green. I was about to say blue for some reason. Obviously, we've got the big blue tower, and then we have a big green bridge. Based this kind of on the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, but not really. Only in the sense that the actual supporting towers are kind of an Art Deco style, and that it's quite a bright colour. Most suspension bridges are just kind of white or something like there's sort of an off yellow or something. They're not really, you don't really get garish colours like the Golden Gate, which is a shame, because the Golden Gate is a beautiful, beautiful bridge. So I thought, I would like a beautiful, beautiful bridge. And I don't think this was quite as beautiful as the San Francisco Bridge, but you can see it's all about the attention to detail in Planet Coaster. I kind of Googled a few pictures of suspension bridges, and they usually have this kind of sort of wavy, crisscrossy metal structure underneath the road, because that's necessary in terms of the engineering. It's not like it's an artistic choice, but I guess it is very much an artistic choice in Planet Coaster. But it's nice to make decisions that look like they would be very emulatable, replicable in the real world. So I'm kind of using these sort of iron pieces here, painted them green. I kind of like the way the metal green came out, actually. The actual towers, I think, came out a little bit too light, sort of too limeish rather than dark green. But yeah, placing, so I kind of just built one section and then just copied it a few times. If you place a piece that binds to the grid of the building, you can place it really easily. Those iron pieces don't conform to the grid, so by duplicating them would be really, really hard to get them accurately placed along the bridge in a uniform manner. But if you take something that binds to the grid, like those fence pieces I placed down, then hey, you can just whack them down, no problemo. There we are. I do need to disable those customs, those supports on the rail bridge at some point, but we will get around to that. So now it comes to the construction of the towers themselves, and I gave a lot of thought into how I was going to do this. At first I thought about using like just wall pieces built into a square, but I couldn't quite get the shape I wanted. So you want to have this kind of nice sort of subtle, like you know how the Empire State Building, it's obviously not a spike, but it does gradually taper in sort of blocky shape, in a sort of blocky way. And the same with the Golden Gate Bridge, really. So I kind of wanted to replicate that kind of ascension. I think we did a pretty good job here. So I'm using the pillar pieces from the Adventure Pack that contains the temple pieces. And then at the top, we kind of got this nice sort of, almost like a brutalist kind of structure. Which is closer to brutalist or Art Deco. I'd say closer to brutalist, but it does look a bit like the Golden Gate Bridge, and that is very much an Art Deco style. So yeah, I placed 2 towers side by side, making sure they're nice and aligned. I actually deleted this first tower because I'd already lined them up on the other end. I thought we may as well just take the 2 that are already lined up and just slide them down. So there we go. Just highlight them all very carefully, not to highlight anything else. And there we go. So yeah, we got the 2 pieces built. Probably should have built the cross beams as well before cloning it across, but it's not a huge problem to deal with. And then I noticed that the train track, totally forgot what that word was for a second. The train track wasn't particularly straight. So we could just go back and try and make it conform to the shape of the bridge. Very easy to get the paths to maintain their shape, but it's hard to make things parallel in this game. So once you've built one thing that's very straight, it's very hard to build something else that runs alongside it that's very straight. But I think for all intents and purposes, this looks pretty good, what we've got right now, so I was happy with it. And then we could just build some little cross beams just to, well, actually, no, not just yet, apparently. I thought that was me placing a cross beam, but it isn't. It's me placing the cables, which are actually just made of wood. So structurally wise, I wouldn't advise you to cross this bridge. It's made of spooky wooden planks, according to the in-game description, which would probably mean rotting wooden planks, wouldn't it? So perhaps it wouldn't be a good idea to A, ride the train, or B, attempt to walk across this bridge. But whatever, at least it looks nice on the postcard, you know what I'm saying? So I just built one arm, then we could just duplicate it around and around and around and around. And that's pretty much a good. So I think I prefer the bridges I built in Crimson Tower. They were much smaller and more simplistic, but they looked a lot more modern, and I think more fitting for the style of a footbridge. I mean, footbridges generally aren't built like this. There's one that I kind of had in the back of my mind. It doesn't look anywhere near as big as this or grandiose as this. It's only really similar in the fact that it's a suspension bridge that's kind of the same sort of style of suspension bridge as this, like the Brooklyn Bridge, Golden Gate Bridge, Humber Bridge, Severn Bridge. You know, most. It's one in Kingston? Yeah, Kingston upon Thames. There's like a white bridge, footbridge. I can't remember what it's called, and I can't be bothered to Google it. I knew what it was called at some point, though. Because that was one of the bridges I looked at when trying to come up with a good design for this one. So yeah, we got the bulk of the suspension structure done. Obviously, we need to do the other parts of the suspension bridge that anchor it into the ground, but that shouldn't be too hard. So again, we're just going to build one beam, one cable, and then just keep on gradually duplicating it down, and then until it goes into the ground, really. And that's that. Again, this is all aesthetic. Planet Coaster structures don't matter. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter how you go about doing it, if it's realistic or not. As long as it looks good, then it's pretty good, I guess, would be my philosophy. There we go. So again, just duplicate it across, and then once we've got 2 that are parallel, duplicate the 2 of them so you can maintain that continuity on the other side. Spin them around. I like to use angle snap just so you can make sure it's turning exactly 90 degrees, not approximately 90 degrees. And there we are. Now, obviously, the track is floating, and we can't use the default supports of the track because those would just go straight through the bottom of the bridge and show up underneath it, which would then kind of defeat the point of having a suspension bridge because it would have visible stilts through the river. So just disable the supports, and we'll just make these kind of raised iron platforms. And while we're at it, we can place those lamps as well, because street lamps and all that, they have to be placed individually unless you duplicate them as part of a sort of bigger piece that conforms to the grid, and then you can just snap them all together really quickly, and that's what I did. I think in hindsight, there was probably too many lampposts on this bridge. So what I might go back and do is just remove every other light so it's not quite as weird looking. It looks a bit overkill, doesn't it? maybe I'll go back and revise that, or maybe even have some spotlights on the towers for the bridge itself. But all of that is yet to come. It's not something we're going to be doing in this episode. So yep, once we built the cross beams, we can just duplicate them across. I thought it might be a good idea to put some cross beams below as well, because that would make sense to have them below. So again, just build them on one tower, highlight them all, Control X, and then just use the dragging arrow to move them across. And of course we can do these sort of big anchor points here to make it look like the cables aren't just going into the grass, because that would look a wee bit unrealistic. So we can have these kind of bigger tubes that look like they've been sunk into a larger concrete anchor below the surface of the park. That sounds very overly dramatic, doesn't it? Which is pretty synonymous for this very, very overbuilt bridge, isn't it? So, I guess it's a rather fitting description in a way. Again, wasn't really too happy with how straight it looked. A little bit queer, so decided to just go back and try and rehash it a little bit so it's nice and straight. So, a little bit of trial and error, mostly error, but eventually I think we got there. So, just getting it nice and level. And there we go. Obviously, to get it perfectly straight, we'd have to use angle snap, but the thing is it would look parallel. Then as you get kind of 3/4 of the way down the bridge, you notice you very slowly started to clip into the fence. It's borderline impossible to get it exactly parallel by the human eye, unless you kind of build the train track initially like that, and then build the rest of the layout, including all the stations afterwards, which I didn't do. I've already built one of the stations, so we didn't do that. But there we go. There is the bridge. So, yeah. As I say, I think I like the colour overall. I think you'll agree that the towers look a little bit too bright relative to the rest of the bridge. So we will go back and I will show you a clip of what those towers look like now. But I won't show you me painting them because I couldn't for the life of me find... I've got so many hours of footage of me building this park, it's unreal. I physically could not find the part where I painted the towers. I mean, you'll eventually see it eventually in this series when I eventually get to making the episodes that contain the footage of me painting those towers, but I think you can probably get the gist of what that would look like. It's me highlighting all the parts in those towers and then just changing the colour of them, as one might expect for a clip of me changing the colour of some towers. So there you go, just carving out a little ravine for the track itself, and there's a little shot of a train passing over the newly painted archways or, towers. I think you'll agree they look far better in a dark colour. I know it's not the best angle. It looks like it could just be darkened by the light. I'll do a quick shot of the bridge kind of in profile again, just so you can see what it looks like today. And I think you'll agree that it looks like a far nicer colour. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps this episode up, to be honest. Didn't build any rides, although next week we will be building a dive coaster. People got annoyed, or one guy pointed out that I call them vertical drop roller coasters when actually they're called dive coasters. I've always called them vertical drop roller coasters because the first one in the world was Oblivion, and that was marketed as the world's first vertical drop coaster, and RCT2 and RCT1 called them vertical drop coasters, so I guess there's that. Twitter, Patreon, and my Discord are all in the description, as well as on screen. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your